Hey, welcome to Fork's Garage. I'm Fork. So I posted a few videos about a month ago at this point of me riding around on my Sportster. And I realized I've never actually shown you my Sportster. So there's two reasons why I'm doing this video. One is to introduce you to the Sportster, and the second is because I bought some Viking bags and I kind of wanted to give a very high-level overview of what happened. This is not an installation video, and that's mainly because the installation was a bit of a nightmare. But yeah, so this is the Sportster. It's a 2014 XL 1200C, which is just a fancy way of saying a 1200cc Sportster Custom. I picked this up right before the pandemic hit, actually, and because of that, I have not ridden it too much. In fact, I think the ride that you guys saw was probably the longest ride that I had taken on it since I actually rode it home from about a half hour south of here. The Viking Bags. Okay, so I'm going to screw up the name, so I'm going to read it to you. Alright, these exact bags that I got are called the Viking Spear Shock Cutout Motorcycle Large Saddlebags for Harley Davidson 1200 Custom XL 1200C, which is a mouthful. So I will link to the bags in the description. This is not a sponsored video by any means. I mean, I've got 3 subscribers to this channel, so it'd be silly to think it is. But these are these right here are the bags. Let me show you the insides. I'll grab the key here. So these do lock. These are a hard leather on the outside. Okay, just simple turn. We got 2 locks here. Set these up there. And then you just kind of pull it open. Okay. On the inside, they are also the hard leather. So the bags themselves are pretty good size. Bags are a pretty good size. And it even has little pouches, and this is in both bags. This is for handling, carrying tools or whatever else you may need. So I do plan on carrying a ratchet set that has some of my basic ratchets for my Sportster, you know, should something go wrong, God forbid, on the side of the road. So what I wanted to talk about these. So these have 2 ways to be mounted. One way is they come with this. So they have 2 ways that you can do this. One way is a throw over, which basically just means you can take them off whenever. And this little piece right here actually was already on it. It was connected, and that's how I got it. It has this little strap for a little more integrity. It fits underneath the seat, and then you have the mounting bars that keep it away from the suspension and all the moving parts. I opted not to do this. Originally, I had put it on there, but I really didn't like the feel of it, to be honest. I felt like they were not really on there very strong, because the seat on the Sportster, as those of you who have a Sportster know, there's really nothing under here. You have a peg about here, and then you have your mounting bolt back here, and all of this is open. And so that piece itself is probably about 3 inches large. I mean, that's a lot of room that it has to move around. And I'm sure, you know, I had a passenger on the pillion, it'd be fine. But, you know, I have never had that. So, cannot convince the girlfriend. So, I decided to do the hard mount instead. With the hardware that they provided, it was not enough to mount it properly the way that I needed to, because I have the sissy bar on here. So, as you can see down here on the sissy bar, there's 1 notch here, and there's another one back here. And when you get your Sportster, if you don't have the sissy bar, you're going to have 2 pegs that come out of the back here, and this is to hold on your pieces here, your chrome piece. If you install it, hard mounts is what they call it. If you install hard mount, you can take these away completely, and the bags will go pretty much flush to your bike, which is pretty nice. But for me, that's not an option. I wanted to keep the sissy bar. Honestly, I'm planning on taking some very long trips with this bike in the next coming months or so. So I needed to keep the sissy bar. I need that back there. And I wanted the bags, obviously. When you put the bags on, let's talk about the hard mounts, which is the way that I went. The same brackets that do the throw over to keep it away from your moving parts are the same brackets you're going to use on the inside. And they came with an assortment of screw sizes, of bolt sizes, and they weren't long enough. What I had to do, and I can't exactly show you because they're on the bike now, is I had to buy larger bolts, longer bolts I should say. So the bolts that come with them are 5/16 inch bolts diameter. So I basically had to buy bolts that were 5/16 by 4.5 inches, I believe it was. I don't think it was 4 inches. I think it was 4.5. And I needed the extra because I needed to be able to go through the bag, then through a spacer on one side, through the mounting, those mount bolts that I was showing you, and then through the chrome, through the frame, through the fender, and then out through the back. So that's pretty far. So there's two things that you need to do with this. When you're putting it back together, let me show you the two here actually. Okay, so I removed the sissy bar, and there's a reason for it. I want to show you the mounting points and what caused all the problems for me specifically. So, on your Sportster, you're going to have two mounting points here that your sissy bar goes through. This is a really small one, a little pancake, and then you've got a much larger one here. So in order to get the two of these to be the same height so that you can get a flush mount on your bike, they do come with these little spacers. They're not actually meant for what I used them for, but they worked exactly what I needed them for. So the whole point of these spacers is to keep it away. Let's say you have a lot of moving parts on your bike, maybe on your right side, it's touching your swing arm, or maybe it's getting really close to the belt. That's what the spacers are for. The spacers pull away from the bike. In my case, I didn't do that. In my case, I needed they give you a full-size spacer and a half spacer, let's just call them that. And the half spacer was just enough to bring that little pancake mounting point that I was showing you up to about the same height as the one in the rear. So I could then mount my bags straight forward. So now with the rear bolts, and with the front bolts, I've now added some space onto there. I've added in probably about an inch or so. So that's why I ended up needing it. When you go to install it though, it's actually pretty simple. Their directions are a nightmare, by the way. But however, if you look inside here, this is the bolt that goes through the top. So these two bolts are what mount directly to the bike. Then down here, these and a supporting bracket are actually the opposite side of the mounting poles. That's these right here. These are what, if you were doing throw over, they would just be sitting there and your bag would rest against them. But since I did hard mount, they are mounted directly into the bag. Mounting directly into the bag is something important because I don't think a lot of people realize this. When you get these hard bags like this, you have to cut into the bags. So in my case, I had to use a 3/8" drill bit, and I had to make 4 holes. 2 holes at the top that go for the body itself, and then 2 holes at the bottom, which are those mounting poles that you saw. Trying to align it is not simple. I lucked out because on these particular bags, in the back, there's kind of a cutout there, which I can show you here. So if you see these little indents here, and then there's one right about here as well. These are straight. So if you set the bag on the floor, directly, you'll notice that those two impressions that I just showed you end up being horizontal exactly. So what I ended up doing is on my bike, I put the bolts coming out of these 2 pieces, just kind of like put it directly in there. And then I aligned the bolts in the back here, so you can kind of see that indent. I hope it shows up on camera for you. but this little indent here. So my bolts are going directly into the indent here, and then I measured, you know, put a circle around it, which they recommend you do. You put it up against it, you draw a circle, and then you drill into the exact center of it. So after you get those two bolts done, then you're able to, you know, kind of calculate where you want the bolts at the bottom to go. And the bolts at the bottom, you just kind of put those mounting bars on there, and you separate them, you know, the distance of that brace that I showed you that was on the inside. So their instructions are not very clear about how to transfer those 4 bolt holes into the other bag. When they show you it, you'll see in the instructions, they have a video online, you know, I should probably link to the video in the description. It's not the most helpful, but you'll kind of get an idea about it. But when you get those 4 bolts done, the 4 bolts done on the first bag, you kind of lay the bags on top of each other, and the bag with the holes goes on the top, and you're supposed to put a pen through it and kind of mark them. I didn't do that. I didn't do that exactly. So I started thinking about it, and I thought, okay, well, the 2 at the top make sense because the 2 at the top are alignment. The 2 at the bottom, why does it matter if they align with each other or not? There's nothing on the bag because it's away from the bike, the body of the bike. There's nothing holding it in place that creates alignment like that to where you need those 2 to line up. So what I did is I made, I took like a little Allen wrench, and when I had them together, I took the little Allen wrench through the holes that I created, and I marked where those 2 holes are going to be. I used a tape measure to make sure that I'm the exact distance. I think it was 7 inches on my bike. So, sorry, just a hair over 7 inches. So I made sure that they were the same distance, and then I did all that. So it ended up working out. And then the other 2 holes at the bottom on the second bag, I just kind of put it where I thought felt good, and then I drilled into the bag that way. That was about it. So all in all, you know, I'm not experienced at any kind of fabricating or anything like that. You know, I'm just an idiot who is in his garage talking to a tiny little camera. But for me, if I were to put all my time together minus the breaks that I took in between, because I was working while I was doing this, I was, you know, doing my job. They don't need to know. But all in all, I'd say it took me roughly 2 hours to get everything done. And a lot of it was that I was really planning. I've had the bags for about 3 days. I took 2 trips to the hardware store because originally I was going to soft mount them, and they didn't give me enough washers, so I had to go buy some. But then I decided to hard mount them, and when I did that, well, that's when I needed the longer bolts, so I had to go back to the hardware store this morning and buy those 4 bolts. Really, in my case, all I needed were the 4 bolts with enough washers to go around. That's about it. Hopefully, you know, hopefully seeing this video, if you have any questions about how to install yours, if you ended up getting some, you know, I'll be happy to help. You know, please reach out on YouTube here. And, you know, if you guys want to see more videos about the bags, you know, I haven't taken it out on its maiden voyage yet with the bags. But I can tell you that the bags themselves, I want to say they supposedly add around something like 10 to 16 pounds to the bike. I'm gonna err on the side of caution and say 16 pounds. The bags themselves, because I hard mounted them, I can hold a little more. They tell you to only do about 11 pounds per bag, but I think you can do up to 16 pounds in the bag. I don't fully recall. But for the trips that I'm going to be doing, that's fine. That's no problem at all. And I'll be recording those trips for you guys. You know, in probably about a month or so, depending on how the weather is, I may do my first trip. It's gonna be about 5 hours north that I'm going, and I'm planning on stopping by 3 different Harley Davidson dealerships just to break up the trip. I just think it's gonna be a fun trip to do. So look out for those videos. Thank you for watching. Again, I'm Fork. Welcome to my garage, and thank you.